Senator Ron Johnson with us from the great state of Wisconsin. Senator Johnson, just me today, but we're going to have a robust chat. Thank you for calling in.
Well, Buck, I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, man, it's great. I told your colleague, Senator Paul, this before. Shutdown D.C. is lovely. Yeah, it's really it's the convenience factor alone is very, very appealing. But tell me this, the recent release from the Senate Judiciary Committee of the phone numbers, well, basically showing that a number of Republican senators, including you, had their cell phone data grabbed by Jack Smith's witch hunt investigation. What were your first thoughts when you saw this?
Well, Buck, I think you're aware of the fact I've been investigating the FBI dating back to James Comey's edited exoneration email, following that whole cast of characters through to Crossfire Hurricane, the Russian collusion hoax, the Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, again, I've seen the partisanship, the corruption of the federal law enforcement agencies, FBI, DOJ, up close and personal. I've been a target before of the Foreign Influence Task Force. So my first reaction was, doesn't surprise me in the slightest. It didn't. Now, it's shocking. It should outrage every American. It's a outrageous violation of separation of powers. But unfortunately, we've got half America that still listens to the legacy media, and they don't care. They're completely oblivious to the decade-long politicization, weaponization of the federal government agencies under Barack Obama and Biden. And I thought Eric Schmidt did a great job in the Judiciary Committee hearing yesterday. So all the Democrats are banging on Pam Bondi about politicizing the Department of Justice. Eric Schmidt said, when you're trying to clean it up, when you're actually trying to deter future weaponization, when you're trying to prosecute weaponization, that's not the same thing as weaponizing the agencies. That's called law enforcement. That's called the rule of law. And that unfortunately is not what our Democrat counterparts and half the country just doesn't quite get that.
I mean, I know the at least offered rationale behind this is Jack Smith needed to look into January 6th and the election plot or something like that. But so you're not surprised to see any of this. But as we get this information and it becomes more public, are there any pathways to accountability? I mean, there's the reform piece of this, and then there's also those who abuse their power. What happens with them?
Well, it starts with exposure. And I appreciate Cass Patel and Dan Bongino as soon as they found out about it. I heard about it on Friday, close hold. We got briefed on Monday. We released that. We don't know a whole lot. What we do know is that the only way they found out about this is the individual who scooped up these records was reapplying to be part of the CAST team again, the Cellular Analysis Survey team. And so that individual, this was basically a brag sheet. So this individual put it down as an accomplishment. Say, no, I definitely should be part of this CAST team because I scooped up the cellular records of 9 members of Congress. Pat me on the back. So that's how we found this out. We found out about the 92 Republican groups that were targeted by Jack Smith because of an FBI whistleblower. So here's my first appeal on this show. We need more whistleblowers. We need those of you in these agencies that respect your organization, that want to see credibility and integrity returned to it. We need you to come forward with documents. Tell Cash, tell Dan, this is what we know. Because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what documents exist if you don't know they exist. So we need a lot of help. Just because President Trump, who I think is doing a fabulous job in office, all these folks are dedicated to cleaning up the mess left by Biden and the Democrats in charge. Just because you're in charge of the agency doesn't mean you really are in control of it, because you have people burrowed in, leftist partisans in these agencies, sabotaging, frustrating every effort, just trying to wait it out until they have another Democrat administration, they can weaponize it again.
Speaking to Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, and Senator, as we're talking about this and trying to get, as you put it, to get the information out there to expose what's going on, I know that there have already been reported a number of firings by Director Patel from the FBI of people involved in politicized and abusive actions. Do you see other than the exposure and oversight component of this from, say, the Senate Judiciary Committee, is there any legislative action that you would want to see to try to reform any of these agencies? Is there anything else that you want to see the Trump administration do on the executive side to try to reform these agencies?
Well, until we get enough Republicans, and we probably need more than 60 in the Senate to actually pass this kind of legislation, with Democrats, with in numbers that prevent this stuff, you're not going to pass legislation to fix this. Again, they like government. They have no problem weaponizing government, as you can tell by that judiciary hearing yesterday. Again, I think the administration is doing what it can do. I guess I'm just kind of warning the public, don't expect immediate results here. The challenges that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and President Trump face are enormous. I mean, we saw the first administration sabotage from within. So President Trump is far more wary of it. That's why I think he selected people, some real fighters, some articulate fighters like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. But again, a lot of leftists quit. They simply couldn't stand serving President Trump. They had to fire, and they are terminating a bunch of people. But there are plenty burrowed in. And the problem is, because of the lawfare against people like Judge Troupas in Wisconsin, the high-integrity individual who was President Trump's attorney during the whole election turmoil in 2020, they're destroying him. I mean, they're trying to criminalize his advocacy for President Trump. So it doesn't take very many examples that they have to make of somebody like Judge Troupas for. It really discourages other people who would like to serve this president, but they also want to pay up their student loans. They want to have a career afterwards, and they realize Democrats have no problem destroying people's lives in their quest and maintenance of power.
What are your thoughts about James Comey trial coming up in January? Is this the beginning of accountability? Is this not nearly enough? James Comey, I'm sure, as you've been following weaponization, I would argue he has been among the chief weaponizers of the FBI and therefore DOJ power.
I view that whole cast of characters as criminal. The problem is statute of limitations. What crimes can you actually charge and convict them with? They won't even come close to fitting the damage that these individuals have done. The Brennans, the Clappers, the Comeys, the McCabe's, the Pages, the Strucks, Tim Tebow. I mean, these partisans, they have interfered in our election. They have created such political turmoil over the last decade. Russia and China couldn't dream of interfering or doing the political damage to our nation than this cast of criminals has really pulled off. So again, I don't think there's enough you could charge them with or sentence them with to make them pay for how much damage they have done to our democracy. You always hear Democrats, President Trump's a danger to our democracy. No, these people threaten our democracy, and you can demonstrate it's incalculable, quite honestly, the damage they've done to our body politic and to our democracy.
Now, the government may open next week. We talked to Senator Paul in the last hour about this. Do you think Democrats have just politically lost this one entirely? How do you gauge that? We've talked about what's at issue here, so I think the audience is pretty up to speed. We're all up to speed on they want ACA subsidies. They're crying. They want to have their cake and eat it too. But just on the political side of this, Schumer is pushing this. Is this a loser for him and for the Democrats overall? How do you see that part of it?
Well, I sure believe so. And again, the House did a smart thing to pass a clean CR and left town. So it's obvious the only reason the government shut down is because Schumer won't vote and tells Democrat colleagues to vote for funding levels that are Biden's levels. Since I've been here, we've had 55 continuing resolutions. My guess is Schumer's probably voted for all 55 of them, or the vast majority. So what's the difference now? Well, again, they're holding out for this ACA. Now, they can always count on the mainstream media to be their ally here, and that's a concern, and as well as they can count on some of our weak-kneed colleagues jumping into the fray and going, we've got to do a deal here, okay? So I'm highly concerned. I appreciate, quite honestly, what you and Clay have been talking about here. I appreciate the articles written by Kim Strauss and a bunch of folks at the Wall Street Journal, trying to instill a little spine in the Republican conference here. But no, this should be a clear winner. I sure hope we don't cave and extend these temporary COVID pandemic-enhanced subsidies, which have resulted in tens of billions of dollars of fraud, and perpetuate that fraud. So I hope President Trump digs his heels in as well and realizes how foolish it'd be to throw more money at a completely failed Obamacare.
Is that even, to me, that just would be such a political blunder and also such a betrayal of principle for Republicans. Is there a real concern that they may cave on the ACA thing, on the subsidies, or is that a pretty low probability in your mind?
We are hearing people, or kind of backdoor channels, that kind of stuff. Buck, let me just give you an example. I proposed the Eliminate Shutdown Act, right? Pretty common sense. We could eliminate shutdowns for all time. So, of course, every big spending Democrat voted against it. But unfortunately, we had a lot of Republican appropriators vote against it as well. The rationale they used, by the way, is because it was going to undercut the appropriation process. Let me just describe, in here 15 years. The appropriation process should have passed 180 appropriation bills prior to the end of the fiscal year. You know how many they've actually passed in those 15 years out of the 180? 6. So Republican appropriators, together with every Democrat, is defending an appropriation process, holding us hostage to an appropriation process that has a 96.7% failure rate. So, no, am I concerned about what some of our weak-kneed colleagues in the Republican Party might do? Absolutely, which is why we need presidential leadership to make sure that doesn't happen. If he says, do not do it. And again, I appreciate the fact he's tweeted, say, look, we're happy to help them fix their completely failed Obamacare. I'm happy to do that, but not extend these subsidies, which literally would perpetuate tens of billions of dollars worth of fraud from the American taxpayer to insurance companies on policies people don't even know they have.
Seems very straightforward to me. So I know you'll hold the line, Senator, and you come back and tell us if any of your Republican colleagues get a little weak in the knees. They got to come on here on Clay and Buck and explain why they would cave. Thank you for being with us, Senator Ron Johnson, as always.
Appreciate the opportunity. Have a great day.
All right, our sponsor, Pure Talk, shares our values in addition to providing excellent cell service on the best nationwide 5G network. And for one, they support our military by investing in organizations that help veterans once their service has ended. They also employ a customer service team that's 100% U.S. based, which is a real rarity in the wireless industry. And Pure Talk does something else worth noting. They support free speech. They stand by the principle that everyday Americans should be able to speak openly without fear of retribution. We may not always agree, but we respect the right to one another's opinion. And so we're proud to have Pure Talk as a sponsor on this show. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk and support those who support your values and your right to free speech, and also get a better plan, better pricing, and better customer service. It's win-win-win all around. The price of Pure Talk service only reinforces why you should change from AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon. Plans start at just $25 a month. You're going to save a ton of money when you switch. Dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck to switch to our wireless company, Pure Talk. Right now, you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck to switch to Pure Talk. Do it today.
Hey, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And be sure to hit that like button.